So on one of the first jobs that I had in my life, I had a supervisor. She was fantastic. She was really nice to me, which is, you can say, a good quality for a manager. But also she did something that I really appreciated. And even though it was many years ago and it was my second or third job, I already felt that this is a rare thing. She would always tell me when I'm doing something wrong, as well as telling me when I'm doing something right. And the second part is often missing because, yeah, managers can easily talk about you screwing something up, but rarely acknowledge, oh yes, this is what you did, great. And I really like that. And I remember back then I was thinking that, yeah, this is a state-of-art management. This is how a manager should look like. And although I definitely think that all of this is very much required, right now, after many years and after many years of working as a manager myself, I sometimes recall these times when I thought like that, and I'm thinking, I didn't even understand that this fall into a category of a bare minimum that your manager should actually do. And this lady, the supervisor, she was very good and she tried her best, and I think she didn't possess the knowledge that feedback does not equal management. The feedback is a tool and it does not replace all other things that does fall into definition of manager's job. So today I thought I will tell you a little bit more about what I think falls into a definition of manager's job. And this is, in my personal belief, is something that an employee can require from their managers. And the first one is clear context and priorities. Because managers always like to tell you what to do, but often skip the why part. And this is also why in all of the big companies, everyone puts so much emphasis on explaining the strategy to people. Because when you explain why, the what, that should be a derivative from why, by the way, makes sense much more. And I think to a certain extent, managers owe their employees to explain the strategic context. So you deserve to know not only how well you're doing something, but also why you're doing that. And to be honest, it confuses me why more managers don't do that, because that's actually very beneficial for a manager. Instead of just sitting on the strategy or on your long-term plans and gatekeeping them, you explain this to people and you actually have them on board. I think it leads to a better, practically and literally better work for everyone. So this is one thing, I don't know, I think that managers just maybe they don't know that they need to do it. That's why they don't, because there is no downside in it, only benefits. Next, your manager owes you a career development support, because feedback is about the past and career conversations, and the support is about your future. And I know that in many companies, a lot of managers really struggle with that. The reason for that is, in many companies, there are not a lot of career opportunities, objectively. So that's why managers kind of hesitate. They're saying, why would I even have career conversations with people who work for me if there is objectively, no way for you to go up or to get an increase or whatever you require. But I think it is, the underlying logic there is, if I will talk to a person about what they want in their career, what they want next, the skill set, try something else, like develop their career further, it will inspire them to aspire something that they will not be able to get in this company, and this is why they will leave. And because of that, managers decide not to have career conversations at all, which I think is such a rotten logic in a way, because first of all, if your employee will not get the career development that they actually want in their life, they will not work well. Okay, maybe they will stay in your team and in your company for another half a year or year. Would it make a big impact? I don't think so. And also the quality of their work will not be very good, because if a person feels that they are ready or they aspire a new step, and if they don't get it or don't see a possibility, it leads to a lot of frustration. I don't think that these are the happiest, the most productive people to even work for you. And yes, every time you are developing someone and you help someone to grow, there is a risk or a chance, I could rather say, that this person will find something else in another part of the company or in another role or not even a new team. But your team is not your family, or where you just kind of need to shield them and keep them with you as long as possible. That's not the point. That's not how work works. So even if there are no immediate options in your company, I don't think that this is an excuse to not having a conversation with your team about their development. Nice. So the next part that your manager owes you is emotional availability. Hold on. Just hear me out. I'm not saying that your manager needs to be your therapist. No. But I'm saying that in a working context, when many of us are going through a lot of pressure and we're doing a relatively intensive work, having a emotionally unavailable manager who is not emotionally present when you talk to them about your challenges and your struggles is very, very demotivating. You feel so alone in what you're going through when something like that happens. So, but I also totally understand that, people are very different, managers are very different. So different people have a different mental capacity and maybe emotional, I don't want to say emotional challenges, but maybe like capacity to show that they are emotionally present. But I also think it's a skill that you can train. I remember a few of my managers, of my leaders, that made me feel so understood when I was going through a tough time, especially when I was going through a tough time. And it gave me so much energy and drive and the will to move forward. It is a fantastic tool. I know it's not easy, but I think that this is a necessary quality for a manager. Again, not a therapy, but being emotionally available, especially if your employee is like borderline burned out or going through a challenging time, hands down. And here also comes psychological safety and trust. And what I mean by that is not less the emotional part of it, but rather, have you been working in a team where the culture in the team was, no one would share their mistakes, no one would tell the manager if something goes wrong, everyone would rather try to, hide something because they will know that manager will freak out, and just nothing good will come out of it. Designing a team culture in a certain way is also a job of our manager. And that's not easy. But how we react on people bringing us their mistakes for the first time defines how they will respond to that the next time. If you shout and you freak out and you cannot control your emotions as a manager when something like that happens. Of course, when something goes wrong, we're upset, but you don't freak out, right? Because the next time something will go wrong, your team will be kind of concerned and scared to bring it to you. And because manager is a person in a position of power, how they react defines slowly, gradually, how the culture in the team forms. So it is manager who needs to create the environment where people can, or they feel trusted and they feel free to speak up, to fail, and to eventually grow from all of that. That's my coffee machine. Management is about systems, not surprises. You may know this profile of managers who are, always busy, chaotic. There is always something new that pops up, and it is very urgent and it is very important, and you put a lot of effort and you heroically conquer that, or you break through. So this profile of managers. And a lot of times when I observe people like that, I see that this spontaneity doesn't come from, partially it comes from the objective reality of the business, but also it comes from them not having a skill to build a system that will catch this type of surprises earlier. Because sometimes if you can handle that, the crazy dynamic, it can give a manager a sense of oh yeah, I'm doing a tough job, I'm good at my job, kind of a little bit of the ego boost in a way. But what they don't see often and they don't realize is that how damaging it is for the team. Because if you're not a manager, first of all, you will have less context. You understand less about what's happening. Some things are having impact on you, on your work, on even like on your job, right? So it is very easy to be very stressed in a situation like that. You never know what will be the next thing that will fall down from the sky on you, how it will impact you. It's a very stressful job. It's a quality of a good manager to build systems that kind of bring a certain predictability in the work of your employees. Even if there are surprises, you need to analyze it, to break it down, you need to make sure how this happened, to make sure that it will not happen again. Or even if we return back to the feedback should not be a surprise. There should be systems on how you deal with your team. How often do you assess the performance? You exchange the feedback, all of that. Leadership routines make work of your team less stressful, which makes them more productive and just like happier in working for you, which is, yeah, half of the points goes to that. And there is one thing, that thing. I did not understand this thing for such a long time. And that's painful to think about. But basically, I think that your manager owes you to advocate for you behind the closed doors. Because from the moment when you become a manager, you start to have very different peer circles and stakeholder circles. You have your team, you have your peers, you have your managers, kind of like your... you are often in the room without anyone from your team. And this is okay, this is by design. But how to put this? I think we are sometimes inclined to be nice to our team when the team is in the room and be nice to our management when the management is in the room, and kind of, yeah, it's easy to trash your management behind their back when you talk to the team and do the other way around. It's easy, to a certain extent, it's easy to say, oh yeah, that's my team's fault. To your management when something goes wrong, and even if that's true, that's not the way to do it, and it does not show your seniority and maturity as a leader. And also, you are in a lot of forums where your team is not present, so they objectively don't have these forums are not accessible to them. That, for example, if you are on budget discussions, on calibrations, or, like the HR processes for managers when they discuss their team, they are not present there and they don't have a chance to advocate for themselves in a way. So it's all on you. So it is very important to not to kind of sugarcoat what your team is doing. That's also, so you need to have the right balance there, but it's important to champion your team when you are not in the room. Because I'm absolutely sure that this is exactly what you would want for your manager to do for you when you are not in the room. You would want for your manager to be your advocate behind the closed doors. So what happens if managers don't do that? Why it matters? It matters because if you don't do that, people leave. And there was a saying that kind of like people join companies, but they leave managers, or they leave because of the team, because of the people factor. And I think it's absolutely true. You need to realize that the tough love from a manager is not enough. What I mean by that is only giving feedback is awesome, but it is not enough. Being direct is still relatively easy, but being actually invested, developing your leadership skills and bringing it to your team and showing up as a manager to your team is much, much harder. And as an employee, of course, you need to remember that no one is perfect. And there are very different managers who have kind of like a different balance of their skills. There are some managers that are fantastic in some parts of leadership and not very good in others. And you can also work around that. But I think it's important for you to know what at least you can count on, or like what you should expect from your manager to at least have this awareness, I would say. So yeah, and I wish more managers would know that too. So yeah, that's that. I will finish my coffee now, and you have a very lovely day.